Hey, I really haven't prepared anything to say here, but that video from YouTube that I just shared, I don't know if some of you saw that. It's probably under the community section. It's where they found all those gravestones, all those elaborate, old school type of headstones along the river there. And if you watch the video, they discovered that what happened was they wanted to build some stupid school, where they could indoctrinate and brainwash children and teach them about evolution and how to be gay and all the rest of it, same stuff, and have their, heathen sports and whatever else. So there was a giant graveyard there with graves that went from the 1800s up to, I think, 1950s, something like that. Beautiful headstones. And these were places where, the families, the loved ones had buried children, had buried parents, had buried spouses, had buried, whoever. And that was to be their permanent burial spot with the marker, the proper marker there that they, maybe some of them went into a little bit of debt out of love to put a proper burial marker by their loved one. I mean, it's not like back then you necessarily had health, life insurance or a lot of money. Even my father's father, just that far back, they didn't have money for anything. My dad almost died because he had stepped on a rusty nail, and it wasn't until he was getting pretty much lockjaw from the poison that they finally took him to the hospital because they couldn't afford it. You just didn't go to the hospital because you were wounded, And these people paid for these very nice stone, hand engraved. There was no lasers back then. Hand engraved stones to mark the places where their loved ones had been buried. And of course, by the time you got into 1950s with, Elvis Presley and, the Beatles going to be coming in shortly and all the rest of it, Johnny Cash and the Big Bopper and all of the immorality that was starting to come into America, they started dumping their Bibles. Of course, I think it was 1964 with the Civil Rights Act that you got prayer out of schools, you dumped the Bible. Churches started to become very cheap. It was just a cheap edition of what a church should be. Christianity in general started getting cheap. We know all the rest of it. And burial the same way. Most of my friends, most of the people that I've known, I say most of my friends because most of them have died, but most of them, they die and they get cremated. And they just take their ashes. I had a friend that recently died, Nick Woodard, and I'm trying to figure out what was going on with him. And, he's going to get cremated. He got cremated. And I was asking the family, is there going to be a place of burial or what? Nobody knew anything. They didn't know what they were going to do. They thought, well, maybe we'll spread some of his ashes out by the favorite place he liked to go, up by the river. Maybe we'll put some ashes somewhere. We'll just scatter them like fertilizer. No marker, no place where you can go and pay your respects. We used to know about that. No place where you could go and take flowers, a symbol of the resurrection. We used to know about that. Nothing like that, just very cheap. And I went out on my way it was part of my, I guess, grieving process or something. I showed some of you, I actually made a flower vase out of steel and put a Mustang symbol on it and some other stuff, some copper, made it really nice. And for all I know, I don't know what they did with that ultimately. The memorial service was just cheap, and it was like, what's going on here? Nick was like an afterthought. It was like, what is this? Is this just a promotion of St. Anthony's Church? Is this just, what is this? It's just a reunion? What is this? It was just real. And every time a friend of mine died, there was one right up the street from me. A friend of mine that I'd known since preschool, and when she died, no one ever visited the grave. There's a couple times where the grave started sinking into the soil because it was very wet up there at this tigered grave, and I had to go up and have the guys raise it back up because her own family, or all these supposed friends that she had, nobody cared. And if I don't go up there every once in a while and weed eat around the gravestone or that kind of thing, then it just gets overrun with grass and would eventually disappear. But nobody, and I'm talking like 11 years now, I think in 11 years there's been maybe half a dozen times where somebody has shown up and left some flowers. But other than that, she probably had 1,000 friends and all these family, and nobody went over. Nobody's ever gone over there to pay their respects or to leave flowers or anything. It's just it's a cheapening of America. It's a cheapening of everything that's supposed to be taken with respect and honor, and is supposed to be on another level. You remember? Well, of course, I remember the Bible that I just posted last night on my Show and Tell Part 2, that old German Bible, or some of the other Bibles you've seen me post. They were elaborate. They were, a Bible was something of honor. It was something of respect. It was something of reverence. And it had generally a nice, real leather cover. Sometimes it had wood underneath the leather. And it would have metal studs like brass or copper studs, and like a copper or brass clasp on it, or belts even. And they were just gorgeous because people had real love and respect for the Bible, and it was treated with love and respect and honor. Now, you just go to the dollar store or wherever, go to Walmart, and you pick up a $9.99 cheapo Bible with a cheapo cover, maybe, colored orange, with who knows what crappy translation in it that nobody cares. The thing was made in China. It's not made in, Cambridge, England, or anything like that. It's just a cheapening down of anything of value. Marriage has become a joke. It's no longer, what you'd consider, holy matrimony. It's anything goes, and you know as much about the marriage issue today as I do. It's just gotten disgusting. It's cheap. You'll watch some of these videos. Well, I can't watch them, but some of these videos where even a man and a woman get married, and part of it is they're doing this jig. Oh, look, isn't this cute? The father is doing this rap dance with the daughter. Oh, look at them move their legs. Oh, aren't they so hip? Aren't they so cool? And they're playing some kind of hip hop music or something. And oh, isn't this cool? Isn't this the vibe, baby? And it's like, this is a wedding? This is a wedding? This is supposed to be a solemn, tear-jerking, sober. You know what I'm saying? A wedding is supposed to be, it's like the burial. It's like the Bible. It's like a church service. It's like so many other things in life that we've cheapened. The family. What's the family today? It's whatever you want to make it. The country, the Constitution, the borders, everything has broken down and has been cheapened. I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon it's, you have a drive-through window where you put your dead loved one in the back of your car. You go through the drive-through, and they scoop up your dead loved one with a crane or something, and they process them with some microwave cooker. And by the time you get to the end of the drive-through, it spits out a cardboard box with the ashes of your loved one, and with a sticker on it that looks like a McDonald's sticker, and maybe you get like a Happy Meal with it or something. Where are we going with all of this? I'm going to read just a couple verses here from our King James Bible. In Ecclesiastes 6, verse 3, it says, if a man begat 100 children and live many years, okay, so this guy has a real life, so that the days of his years be many, and his soul be not filled with good, and also that he have no burial, I say that an untimely birth is better than he. In other words, he should have been it'd been better that he was a stillborn or aborted than this guy had. It does say he wasn't filled with good, but it also says he had no burial or no proper burial. If all you have is they stick you somewhere, they scatter your ashes somewhere, and oh yeah, well there's old Bob over there, we scattered his ashes over there. That's not a burial. That's not a proper burial. That's not a proper burial. That's a cheap burial. Or you stick them in the ground and you stick a little marker on there. That's just cheap. That someone who wants to take the money that they maybe got from the insurance and go buy a boat with it or something, or buy a new, we're going to buy a big screen TV with that money. Uncle Joe would have understood. And then they just put some cheap marker, after burying him the cheapest way possible. It's just, ugh. That's not a real burial. 2 Kings. 2 Kings 9. And verse 10. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. She's not going to have a proper burial. And he opened the door and fled. And look at verse 36. Wherefore they came again and told him, and he said, this is the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the carcass of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, kind of like scattered ashes, so that they shall not say, this is Jezebel. When you have a proper burial, someone can go visit it. They can say, here is, and then the name is given. It's a proper burial. But what did they do to Jezebel because she was a cursed woman? God made sure that she didn't have a proper burial as a judgment. And it doesn't matter if you're what you're left with is dung on the ground or ashes on the ground. It's the same thing. It says it was scattered in the field. That's the same as being cremated. And your ashes just scattered somewhere. You have no place of burial. Genesis chapter 50, verse 25. And Joseph took an oath of the children of Israel. He made them take an oath of this and swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones from hence. And Joseph died. He didn't want his bones left in Egypt. Well, bless God, I don't care what you do with my body, whatever. You can launch it into space for all I care. You can flush it down the toilet. It's just my... You don't have a biblical view. Joseph said, I don't care if it's even a don't you think in Egypt, when Joseph died, that, he had connections with royalty there, right? I mean, they were considered hotshots. Don't you think he would have had a really nice burial in Egypt? But he said, I don't even want my bones here, not even if it's a nice burial, not even if there's a nice headstone or whatever. I don't want my bones in Egypt. It matters to me. I want you to dig me up, and I want you to take me with you out of Egypt. That was important. That was the old school way of thinking before things got really cheap and flimsy. It does matter what happens to you when you die. There's a proper way to bury people. There's a proper way to care for a cemetery. You don't dig it up in order to put apartments there or something like that. There's a proper way to have a wedding ceremony. There's a proper way to have a baptismal ceremony. there's a proper way to make a Bible, which nobody does. I would love to see somebody produce a King James Bible where it still has the brass clasp on it, something like that, maybe some manly studs. It wouldn't be that hard to do. You simply go to a manufacturer and you order them. You say, here's the design I want. It has to be, so many centimeters and this and that, and you give them a design, and they make it for you. And then a bookmaker, someone who does books, would tell you how to, here's how you attach it, or they could attach it. I don't know why someone like Cambridge University doesn't do that. But I don't know. I saw this thing on all the gravestones just being hucked down by the river, and all the bodies just, not all the bodies, the majority of them, they just got rid of. But what they got a handful of the bodies, and they just threw them into this barren field where no one even realizes it's a graveyard, and put these little markers on the ground that no one's going to look at or read. There's nothing honorable about those markers. I don't know. I hope you get what I'm saying here. I hope you get it. Everything has been cheapened down. Music has been cheapened. Everything. Well, I'm going to post some pictures that go with this. Let's see. Leave a comment if you like. I want to hear what you have to say.